Hey, BCista here, and welcome to week 5 of the WDC. This week we're playing against the Sommerville Scraggies, so this is a really important week because if I win this, I'm in very good position to be able to get the first seed. However, if I lose this week, I'm in a really awkward position in which I basically have to win my final 2 matches in order to be able to get in the top 2 seeds and be able to get by into the playoffs. And with that, we have a pretty tough matchup, in all honesty. So I think the big reason this is really tough is because Mousehold plus Hydreigon lead is incredibly difficult for me to deal with, especially with the fact that they can tear into multiple different types. The Mousehold can be support with Friend Guard and Follow Me and very bulky, or it could be max attack with, Population Bomb and Wildlands. And Hydreigon can be Assault Vest, Life Orb, Choice Specs, and all of those do massive damage to my team. In addition, have the ability to stop most of my setup strategy. In addition to that, they have some other just generically powerful Pokemon that are hard for me to deal with. They have multiple Pokemon with Imprisoned Trick Room, such as Indeedee and Driftbloom. In addition, they have a couple Pokemon that just outspeed my entire team. In addition to the Mousehold, they have Espathra, which with Luminaria Crash has the ability to half my special defense, and then the double up with that into any attack from Hydreigon basically kills any Pokemon on my team unless I'm running a Clear Amulet or I Terra into a resisted move into whatever move the Hydreigon moves. In addition to that, though, I have a couple of good, Trick Room sweepers into some of their team. They have pretty good speed tier of 35, which speed ties or underspeeds all of my Trick Room sweepers. And so definitely is a very tough match and probably caused me the most difficulty in prep. And so with this, here's the team I decided to bring. So I decided to go with Choice Band Dondozo with Oblivious. The idea of Oblivious is to prevent me from getting intimidated from the luxury. And Choice Band, Wave Crash, Crunch, Outrage, and then Terra Grass have the ability to one-shot a lot of the major threats on my opponent's team. Other than that, the idea is just to get it under Trick Room and hopefully get a kill or two before it dies. For Efrig, we have incredibly bulky. We decided to run Kudchu this week because my opponent doesn't really have too much priority moves. So we don't really need Armor Tell, and we're running the Agua Berry, which allows us to get double activations from the Agua Berry basic with Kudchu, making it incredibly hard to deal with. And then other than that, we have Protect, Trick Room, and then some coverage moves in Dazzling Gleam and Psychic. The Terra Fairy specifically to be able to survive a double up from Hydreigon and Mousehold, if that's the lead they do, because really the only way in which I couldn't survive that if I Terra Fairy would be if they hard read that I Terra Fairy and go for a Sludge Bomb or Flash Cannon. Next up we have Arboliva. So Arboliva has the Covert Cloak. There's a couple Pokemon I think I could have fit the Covert Cloak on, but I definitely felt like I needed it this week because of the combination of Espathra and Salt Cure from the Salt Lick, or from Knuckle Stack. And so I decided to go with Arboliva with it. The idea with Arboliva is that pretty much it hits most things on my opponent's team fairly well. And it basically has a guaranteed in-game win con against a lot of the Pokemon on my opponent's team. So it's really good with that. The downside with it is because of Levitate on Hydreigon, Terra Steel, Terra Steel, Terra Poison, and Terra Fire all can't be really hit. I can't really hit, and so that definitely makes it a little bit awkward, specifically into Hydreigon. Next up, we have Rapska. So I went with a max offensive Rapska with Life Orb in order to get some real important one-hit KOs. So Rapska has a guaranteed one-hit KO on a Hydreigon that doesn't Terra, has a one-hit KO on a Spathra, one-hit KO on a Heracross, and those are some of the Pokemon that were really annoying to me. In addition, just have the ability to revive one of my Pokemon with Revival Blessing. And then we have the Terra Steel just so that it takes hits from like Population Bomb a little better, and then like, Dark moves, Dragon moves a little bit better. Obviously, the downside of Terra Steel is it still gets hit by its fire weakness, but that's kind of the idea with it. Next up, we have an Assault Vest Tauros. The idea with Tauros, yeah, the Intimidate can be very relevant into a offensive mousehold. In addition, Raging Bull hits both Hydreigon and Mousehold for super effective damage and threatens to one-hit KO both of them if they're not super bulky focused Pokemon. And obviously, this can be a little bit negated from Terralization. However, I don't expect necessarily them to Terralize into something that resists fighting. So even if they do it as a neutral move, it's still a 2-hit KO. And with the Assault Vest and the Intimidate, I should be able to take an attack from either of them. And in addition, Tauros outspeeds Hydreigon. Finally, we have Earthworm. So Earthworm, Terra Water, just takes fire moves. The main idea with it is Shed Tail to get a free, substitute for whatever Pokemon I switch into. And then kind of in the late game, come back in, hit body presses and iron heads, would hit most of the team for reasonable damage. So the idea, one of the big leads that I would like to go with is Farafrig Earthworm, Trick Room, Shed Tail, and be able to get a substitute and Trick Room up on turn 1. And then from there, kind of get a Trick Room sweep. But other than that, let's get into the match. So here we are for game 1. So looking at my opponent's team, they, I think, actually have all 6 Pokemon of one of the prep teams I prepped against. And so I decided to just go with the standard lead, which was the Earthworm with Farafrig. And the main question is which Pokemon do I like in the back? And I decided to go with Rapska and Arboliva because they have Heracross and they have the Espathra. I wanted to be able to bring Rapska to deal with those. And then the Arboliva is my best answer into both the Luxray and the Salt Stack. And so with that, let's get into the match. So my opponent leads Luxray and Knuckle Stack, and I lead the Earthworm Farafrig. So this lead is definitely incredibly passive, which definitely makes me feel pretty happy about my position. And so I don't see much reason not to just go for the Shed Tail with the Earthworm. And the main question is, do I want to do Trick Room or not? Trick Room is pretty much guaranteed unless they go for a Roar from the Luxray. And, I see an argument to maybe play around the Roar, especially since this is their lead game 1. But I decided to just go for Trick Room because I don't think I get punished if they just Roar, because Knuckle Stack doesn't do much damage if I do that. And so with this, I'm able to get a clean Shed Tail up. And with the Citrus Berry, I still have a fairly high HP from the Earthworm in the back. And the big question is, do I want Arboliva and Rapska? And I decided to bring in Arboliva because it threatens the Knuckle Stack a little bit more and also doesn't get the residual damage from any of the moves from Knuckle Stack or like Snarls. And so they just go for Stone Edge, which definitely makes the Rapska in the back a little bit awkward. And they also reveal Roar, which, not too surprising. I probably could have played around it, but like I said, I don't think I get punished too much for that because, my my Girafarig does not do much damage, and so just like hitting a Psychic wouldn't do too much. So here I go for the Giga Drain, and I'm going for the Psychic into the Luxray, but I decided to actually do the Bug Buzz because I think Bug Buzz actually has no resists. And if I do go for Psychic, that is a misplay. I should have gone for Bug Buzz because they do not have many switch-ins to Bug Buzz, where they do have Hydreigon, and it's a clean switch-in to Psychic. So definitely a little bit of a misplay there. However, I also think I should have doubled up into the Luxray because I actually don't care too much about Knuckle Stack. And as we see here, they actually even switch it out. Into a Hydreigon. And so we were able to get pretty good damage in with a Psychic here. Like I said, I think I probably should have gone for a Giga Drain into the Luxray spot. However, probably would have survived. However, this, Giga Drain does okay damage into the Hydreigon, and definitely got, because I got a crit, definitely feel like I probably could have gotten a little bit better of a play there if I just went for the Dazzling Gleam instead. But obviously, it's a little hard to read a Hydreigon switch in there. So they end up roaring again, bringing out the Farafrig, which definitely okay. It does a little bit of damage, but not that big of a deal. And so here we decided to just go for the Earth Power to get the guaranteed kill onto the Luxray spot. And I'm thinking about just going for a Terra Fairy Trick Room in order to pretty much guarantee I don't get killed by the Hydreigon with like a dark move, and being able to kill the Luxray with Earth Power. And so they end up revealing that they are Terra Fire and go for Terra Fire. This is not a surprise at all that they're Terra'd, because they have Tyler has never had Hydreigon on the field this entire season and not Terra'd on the first turn it had the ability to. And this definitely, something that, I should, in theory, be able to, expect in the future in the next game as well. And so they end up going for the Dark Pulse as expected. So I feel very good about my position here as long as I don't get flinched by that Dark Pulse, because I do get the kill on the Luxray with the Earth Power. And we end up not flinching and get the Trick Room up, which is really good. So I'm definitely feeling pretty good about being in Trick Room at this point now. And so they just bring back out Nactyl Sack, and I considered, doing a couple of things, but I think I decided to just go for the damage onto the Nactyl Sack with the Giga Drain, because I don't do much damage into the Hydreigon otherwise. And then the Farafra kind of just doesn't do much other than, clicking Dazzling Gleam or Psychic into one of these two Pokemon. And I decided to just go for the Psychic into the Hydreigon because it is the bigger threat at this moment. So I ended up protecting the Nactyl Sack, which is not that big of a deal. Obviously it wastes my Giga Drain. However, I did, split up my damage and get a little bit of damage into the Hydreigon here. And we can see, it does okay damage, but definitely not good damage. Definitely makes me believe that the Hydreigon is Assault Vest here. In addition to this, I just barely miss on the range to activate my Algo Berry, which makes it really awkward and definitely really sad. And so here I am expecting them to just go for another Flash Cannon into the Farafrig spot. And so decide to kind of read that by just going for the Giga Drain into the Nactyl Sack and switching out into the Earthworm to hopefully take a Flash Cannon. In addition, the other benefit of switching out is Farafrig coming back in, hitting the stones that are up, actually will activate my berry, actually giving me more HP than me me going before. And here we actually reveal that they are a room service and that they actually get a speed drop upon entering, and this definitely makes the situation incredibly more concerning for me. So we switch in the Earthworm, we get the Giga Drain out into the Heracross, which does very minimal damage, definitely very not great. And instead of going for a Flash Cannon, however, they end up going for a Heat Wave, which is really awkward. I honestly probably could have made that as a guess because, it makes sense since they know all my Pokemon back, and there's a good chance that would have killed the Farafrig from that range. So definitely, maybe a little bit of a misplay on me making that read. However, we do save, Farafrig, and Farafrig will be able to get pretty good HP entering with that. And so here we just bring back out the Rapska. And Rapska has taken a lot of damage just from switching in and my own Life Orb. And we're kind of in the situation where Hydreigon is definitely the bigger threat. However, I don't know if I can kill it even with a double up. And, I also am a little bit concerned because I don't know how slow the Heracross will be with room service. And so I checked the speed calcs, and I should be able to should underspeed it with both my Pokemon, even though it has room service. And I just go for the Dazzling Gleam, which should do good damage into the Heracross, and the Psychic, which does, should do okay damage into the Hydreigon. And we get the we get the Psychic off, and it just barely misses out on the KO here. And they go for the Throat Chop, killing my Rapska, and I'm definitely hoping I should take a Heat Wave. I think I do, almost certainly, but it's hard to say at this point. And they end up going for the Heat Wave as expected, and just barely survive that single target Heat Wave. And I get the Seed Sower off. So Farafra comes in, activates the stones, but I get the Agua Berry, getting back up to about 50%. So the issue here is because of room service, there's a good chance Heracross will outspeed me in Trick Room here. And so the optimal play here is to be able to kill both these Pokemon, and there's a chance that double Dazzling Gleam does get the double knockout. And the problem is if it doesn't, then it could be a little bit annoying. I had a voice in my head that said I should go for a Giga Drain and Dazzling Gleam instead of the double Dazzling Gleam, even though double Dazzling Gleam has a good chance to double KO both of these Pokemon in front of me. And if I'm able to kill the Heracross, the game is pretty much over because Hydreigon won't be able to deal with my Farafrig, because I'm going to get a Kudchu boost at the end of the turn. And so instead, I decided to go for the Giga Drain. However, we see that Hydreigon switches out, which is not that bad, which will be fine, assuming I can kill this Heracross, or because, however, as we see, we give the Giga Drain into that spot instead of the Dazzling Gleam, and hoping that this Dazzling Gleam will kill. And luckily for me, I actually underspeed, which is definitely a roll. It's hard to say if this is going to happen. And the Terra Boost Heracross just misses out on the KO. And in addition to that, they crit my Terra Fairy Farafrig, which 100% mattered, and I wouldn't have died if that happened. In addition to not dying, I would have also gotten the Kudchu boost, which would have got me back up to about 50% HP, which would have been huge. However, they also get a second Moxie boost, and the little extra HP is definitely a little bit annoying. I think the difference in that extra HP was the difference in me killing the Heracross, also me not going for the double Dazzling Gleam like I was originally planning on doing. Definitely hurt. However, at this point the game is pretty much over. If I would have killed the Heracross that turn, I would have been in pretty good shape because my Farafrig would have been at max HP. However, now, as we see, the game is over. Definitely a sad end game where I had a very clean, easy win if I hit double Dazzling Gleam, but because I went for the Giga Drain, the Heracross gets the crit there, I lose. Because Trick Room ended that turn, I definitely think there's a good chance I would have lost, though, even without the crit. But the crit definitely did matter in that damage cup. But with that, we can get to game 2. So here we are for game 2. So the big thing I realized in this game is that Terrifier Hydreigon's really annoying. I really feel like I need to have Dondozo somewhere on the team to be able to deal with that Hydreigon, because without it, I'm definitely hard pressed to actually get a kill on it. And so with this, I'm decided to just leave for Afro again, and I want Dondozo somewhere. The question is whether I want to lead it or not. I decided it's a little bit risky to lead the Dondozo because it's such an important component to my team. And so I'm deciding on whether I want Rapska or Arboliva as the partner next to Farafrig. I considered Tauros, but if I'm setting up Trick Room, it's not as good. I considered Earthworm, but I'm expecting them to expect that because that's what I did game 1. And so I decided to go with Rapska and then Dondozo and Arboliva in the back. And then just hope I'm able to get Trick Room up pretty well, and then sweep with Dondozo and the other Pokemon in the back. And so with that, let's get into the game. So they ended up leading Knucklesack and Hydreigon, which definitely not that bad of a lead for me. I have a very pretty much guaranteed Trick Room set up by just clicking Terra Fairy and clicking Trick Room, and then I can just protect Rapska and pretty much get a free Trick Room with very minimal damage. However, I honestly make a very bold prediction that makes no sense, and say that they're going to go for a double up into the Farafrig, and that they're not going to terrorize. This is dumb for 2 reasons. One, even if they double up, I can get Trick Room up guaranteed, which means that it's a good idea to do that anyways. And 2, they always terrorize Hydreigon on turn 1 because they've never not done this entire season. And as we see, they terrorized the Hydreigon on turn 1, which is what they've done every single game this entire season. And I knew this going into the match, and I 100% me going for Bug Buzz was a terrible idea. In addition, me protecting is not a great idea, because if I just Terra Fairy, I had a guaranteed Trick Room up. Instead, they go for a Dark Pulse into my Rapska, which means that if I would have just done my original play, I would have gotten a free Trick Room up with no damage, and the game would pretty much been over. Instead, I lose my Rapska on turn 1 and don't even get Trick Room up. And in addition to that, they go for the Sulcure, which, like I said, wouldn't have been even a big deal. at all. And so definitely this was a terrible turn one. There's literally no reason for me to have made this decision. It was just the actively a bad decision because of both the worst case, it was overly risky for no reason and based against what Tyler does in general. So here we just go for the Terra Fairy and Trick Room like what we should have done on turn one. And we go for the Wave Crash into the Hydreigon, which should one-shot it unless they switch out, and they do. So they end up switching out the Luxray, hoping to get an Intimidate on my Dondozo. However, I'm oblivious, so I don't get intimidated. And with this Choice Band Wave Crash, I should do massive damage into this Luxray, and I wouldn't be surprised if it kills. And as Terra Fairy for Aphrig, we kind of waste their terrestrialization here, and because we could have easily just got it up without it. And as we see, we do a very good chunk of damage, but we don't get the one-hit KO with the Wave Crash, and they just go for Assault Cure into the Dondozo, which with the residual and the Wave Crash damage, my Dondozo is taking a bunch of damage this turn. However, we are able to get a Trick Room up. And as we see, our Dondozo is basically at 50% HP, which is definitely painful. So here we just go for the kill on Luxray with the Psychic, and I decide to switch out into the Arboliva because I don't want to take even more damage from both Recoil and Salt Cure. And in addition to that, if for some reason the Psychic doesn't kill the Luxray, I don't want to take an electric move. They end up going for a Wild Charge, and they actually underspeed my Farafrig, which means they are likely Iron Ball or because my Farafrig is min speed. Which definitely means that they might have even undersped my Dondozo. So it's definitely a good decision for me to have switched out. And we're able to get a Psychic killing the Luxray. And because we got hit by the Wild Charge, we have the Grassy Terrain Recovery, which though, helps, can help them, it does help my Farafrig take the Salt Cure a little bit better. So the Salt Cure is just doing less total damage to me. So they end up bringing out Hydreigon, and so the issue here with Hydreigon is that I don't have a great damage into them with either of these Pokemon. And so I feel really pressured to have to switch in Dondozo. And so I decide to make the prediction that they're just going to go for a Heat Wave, and then they're going to go for a Salt Cure into the Arboliva spot. And so I decide to switch into the Dondozo expecting that play, and I can either, go for the Giga Drain or the Knuckle Stack, or I can just protect to not take the Heat Wave. And I decided to go for the Giga Drain to try to get a little bit of damage onto the Knuckle Stack and hopefully kill it the following turn and go for the double knockout the following turn. And we end up bringing out the Dondozo, and they end up Salt Curing into the Dondozo spot, basically making a hard read that I was going to switch out into Dondozo that turn, which definitely massively punished me. Because now Dondozo is going to be dead the following turn based on the Salt Cure damage and this Heat Wave damage, in which the Heat Wave end up doubling, connecting, doing, pretty good damage to both these Pokemon. And so now we are in this awkward position where Dondozo can guarantee one-hit KO Hydreigon if I attack with it, and if I kill it, the game is over. However, if they just switch it out, my Dondozo will die from Salt Cure. And so I feel the need to have to switch out into the Farafrig and just go for the kill on the Knuckle Stack. This was somewhat of a little risky of a play because we do know they have Stealth Rocks, and with Stealth Rocks, if they set it up here, my Dondozo is dead, even no matter what. However, this is they definitely have pretty much a guaranteed win here if they just go for switching out Hydreigon and go for the Stealth Rocks. I probably should have played that they make a misplay here, and the misplay would be keeping Hydreigon on the field, because if they do keep Hydreigon on the field, they definitely could have just thrown the game here by letting me get a free Wave Crash. However, instead, they do not switch out, which means if I would have Wave Crash, I would have won the game. Sadly, that was not the case, and then they went for the Stealth Rocks, which means the Dondozo is completely dead. And now this game is completely over. They definitely made the strong read that I was going to switch out by doing that. However, I think the better strong read for me switching, expecting me to switch out would have just been stealth rocks and switching, because that's just the guaranteed correct play in all aspects. And so they definitely made a little bit of a, unoptimal play that I could have punished and won the game. Sadly, doesn't matter because I decided to switch out and, not really respect the stealth rocks. And with this, they are able to bring Heracross back out. And this, Dondozo dies upon entry. So definitely a little bit sad. I definitely think I didn't play particularly well. I think the biggest mistake was definitely turn one of game two, in which I had a obvious turn one play in which I did the exact opposite of what I should have done based on everything that Tyler does generally. And in addition, I also, it also was just the I also just didn't make the most optimal, like play in general. And then game one, definitely the not going for the double dazzling gleam, which would have killed the Heracross, and then given me the Kudshu activation on the Farafarig, which would have then probably got me the win as well. So definitely two, misplays that I think made this game go from a 2-0 in my favor to getting 0-2'd. Definitely sad, but as we can see, here we can kind of see the damage calc with the close combat. That would have showed us that how I would have survived at +1 if I didn't get crit in the previous game. And the sad part about this is that did so little damage I didn't get the Kudshu or the activated of my berry, which would have made me able to survive this flash cannon. But with this, we end up getting 0-2 at our first loss of the season. Definitely a sad game because I did not play particularly well. In addition, there was a couple of plays from my opponent's side that kind of gave me really clean possibilities of winning the game, and I basically just did not play to my outs of taking those, minor, suboptimal plays slash, but then again, they also made some crazy smart, reads, and they definitely read my plays and kind of played this, a little bit surprising and very, very much hard read. But with that, I hope you all enjoyed. Hopefully next week goes better for me, and thank you for watching.